Welcome, everyone. My name is Jordi Ricard, and it's a pleasure to introduce the next session of our Journey to the Cloud series. Today, we will talk about Snowflake, but you will find online the previous sessions we did before. With that, it's my pleasure to hand over the session to Oscar Martinez, head of our Big Data and Cloud practice. Oscar, can you share the highlights of this series of webinars?
Thanks, Jordi, for the introduction. So let's now move to the to just one slide that we put in all the series, because yeah, we have been doing this series for a while now. This is actually the number 6, the 6th session. We started more than a year ago with Azure, where Manuel Mas explained how we could build a lakehouse with Azure and Synapse. Now that has evolved and Fabric is here, so we might want to do a rerun or an update of that session. We have a blog about that, by the way, that you can check. And back to the series, after Azure, we continued with Google Cloud, where Victor Colomé explained a success story or a project that we have done with one of our customers and how we build a ingestion pipeline to ingest data to BigQuery and how we could leverage BigQuery to build a cloud data warehouse using Google Cloud. The third session was about AWS, and in that session, Esteve Bosch explained yet another success story with one of our customers where we built AWS data platform with which included CI/CD and DevOps best practices. So that was a very interesting one because we added functionality that is not natively existing in AWS. The fourth session, we had myself and Alex. We presented Dremio. Dremio is another tool that we use for our customers. It is one of the, let's say, lakehouse platforms that you can nowadays use, especially when you want an engine to query your data lake and to have a semantic layer that eases how users interact with it. Dremio might be a very good tool for you to choose. The fifth session was about Cloudera. What to say about Cloudera? We are partners with Cloudera for many years, and we've been working with them. We have a pool of experts that work with Cloudera on a daily basis, so we do have a lot of knowledge on Cloudera. And we had that session where we basically brief a bit about the Cloudera public cloud form factor, which is the shape of Cloudera that you can use to leverage the benefits of the cloud. And today is the number 6, and it's Snowflake. Another, again, what to say about Snowflake. We've been doing separate webinars about the Snowflake for a while. We had not long time ago the Data Wash one, which is one of our products in-house for data quality over Snowflake. And we've also been doing few on-site or in-situ sessions in Barcelona and soon in Abu Dhabi. And today we just wanted to, for consistency on our Journey to the Cloud series, dedicate a session to Snowflake. And this is what Pablo and Alex will be talking about in a while. And after Snowflake, we will have later in the year one session about Oracle Cloud. And it's not still discarded that we might even add an 8th session, because if you know a bit about data platforms on the cloud, there is one name here that you might be missing, which is Databricks. So this is something that we might consider to add also, because we are also using Databricks, and I think it's fair to say that Databricks should have a spot in this slide. So let's see. Stay tuned, because we might for sure have the next one on Oracle and probably another one on Databricks not long after. And with that said, I'll give the word to Pablo, who will now, let's focus today on Snowflake. So all yours, Pablo.
Thank you, Oscar. So yeah, my name is Pablo Pitart. I'm the practice lead in ClearPeaks in Snowflake. And now I'm going to introduce you a little bit to how Snowflake works and a little bit the architecture. So yeah, let's jump to this schema, no? That is the main schema of Snowflake. So in here, we can see that we have 3 different layers, no? First one and most important one is the centralized storage. Here is where all the data resides. Yeah, you have to take into account that this data can be structured or semi-structured. Yeah, this grows like automatically, and it has a huge scalability and elasticity. Okay, so the next layer that we have is the second one, that is the compute layer. You will use this layer just to do all your workloads that you need, loading data, ad hoc analysis, consuming data that you have in your centralized storage, develop some of the things that you have to do, and these kind of things. Yeah, these workloads, this compute layer is also elastic. It has a huge scalability. And finally, we have the third layer, no, that is the service layer, where all your metadata resides, and the thing where all the things happen, no, and you can manage everything. This layer sometimes is like transparent, is where all the optimizations happen. You can fine tune some of the things, but most of them are pretty straightforward and managed directly by Snowflake. But in here, you can define all the content that you will have in your Snowflake account. Okay, so once we know how it's structured, no, a little bit Snowflake, let's jump to what are the capabilities that Snowflake offers, no? So yeah, taking into account this architecture and using its own, no, ETL or streaming functions, you can connect to transactional databases, your enterprise applications, third-party applications, IoT, and most of the data sources that you can imagine. So yeah, that's it. Then you have to create your Snowflake account. You will have to have in mind, no, that you have to create this account in cloud service provider. You will have to choose between Google Cloud, AWS, or Azure. You have to choose wisely, because depending on where your data resides or where all your systems resides, you will have to choose one or the other, no? And yeah, what kind of things can you do, no, in a Snowflake? What are the most common use cases that we can find here? So yeah, Snowflake is ideal just to build your data warehouse application. Also, because of the stages that it has just to store data, you can also build your data lake here in a Snowflake. Also, it has some pipeline functionalities that allows you to do some data engineering in your data. You can also exchange data, share data with others in a very easy way. Also, you can build, your different applications on top of a Snowflake. And yeah, finally, one of the most common things to do here is data science, no? Because yeah, you will have your data stored probably in your data lake, on your data warehouse, and you can access for your data science projects to this data and do this kind of workloads. So yeah, once you have all these cases set up in Snowflake, you will be able now to access this data with operational reporting, with ad hoc analysis for data science, for instance. You can do real-time analytics. And also one really interesting feature is that you can monetize your data. Yeah, with this data exchange, I think that Snowflake has, there is a data marketplace where you can upload or create your data set there, and you can start monetizing this data, like selling this data with a contract with Snowflake. Okay, so once we have seen what things we can do, let's review a little bit what are the general features that Snowflake has. So yeah, as we have seen, you can have multiple purposes there as your data lake, your data warehouse, data science project. So you will have all your data, your company's data in a single place. So yeah, governance-wise, it's a big feature for having everything in the same place. Also, there is an excellent performance. Snowflake provides a fast engine, that can perform really well in big data environments when you have a lot of data and when you have a lot of workloads. Also, you don't need much management. This is a fully cloud platform. So yeah, you can expect that there is zero infrastructure just to manage there. And also, yeah, because all this service layer that we had there, all your data sets and your objects are optimized, so automatically optimized. That's important, no? So you don't need to start creating indexes and partitioning and all these kind of things that in other databases you have to do, no? And yeah, last but not least, you also can instantly share your data. So yeah, imagine in other infrastructures or in other databases approaches that you have your data in your databases and you want to share this with other data consumers, or a third-party company. In that case, you have to create a workload just to put your data in another instance, no, in another database or in another server. In here, no, because the consumers will access directly your data. Security-wise, it's really robust. You don't have to fear that anybody will have access to any of your other data, but you can choose what is the data that you can share, and other people will access in real time to this rephrase data. Okay, and if we go and review a little bit the technical features, we have that it has high scalability. Yeah, you can increase or decrease your resources, taking into account your needs. If you need more power consumption, more compute power, then you can scale automatically, when you need this performance. Also, yeah, same happens for storage. If you need more storage, you can take whatever you want, just to store your data. Also, you have high availability, so this ensures near zero downtime across regions. So yeah, you can replicate all your data in more than one region, so you will ensure that your data will be always accessible in case of a fatality in any of the regions. Okay, so also security-wise, there is up-to-date protection. Snowflake is always updating every week. There is a new release with patches and new enhancements, And yeah, for security, it is always up to date, and it has most of the most important features that you may think, in this kind of infrastructures, Multi-factor authentication, federated authentication, and single sign-on, and all these kind of things. And also it complies with market security standards. And finally, the pricing model. Here, you only will be consuming credits as far as you are needing to consume these credits. So if you are not using Snowflake for anything, you will not be consuming any credit. So you will only consume credits for the storage that you are using at each moment, and also the compute power that you are using at each moment. And yeah, you can auto stop and resume the resources. So and also the resources can just activate when you are doing a query, and when you finish this query and you get your results, it stops all the resources. So it's really dynamic and works really, really well. Okay, so yeah, now we have reviewed all the features that we have, all the technical, all the general features, and all the things that you can do in Snowflake, which is quite a lot. But if you find that there are other third-party tools that can do it in a better way for your use case, or you have other tools already in your company, that you are using for some of the workloads, Snowflake offers a really good integration with third-party tools. It is a never-expanding ecosystem where you can integrate these other tools, into your architecture. Okay, so now let's jump to a demo. Alex will show you in this pre-recorded demo some of the use cases, for Snowflake. So, yep, all yours, Alex.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex, and I am a Snowflake certified data analyst working at ClearPeaks. I'm going to walk you through Snowflake's basics so that you can start exploring the tool by yourself. The following demo you're going to see is based on a hands-on lab that Snowflake itself already has. The data we are going to use is also taken from there. We aim to give you a shorter presentation just to show you how easy it can be to start with a Snowflake. Also, we will be using the new UI, so this will be up to date, at least during 2023. And what we are going to see is an overview of the UI, stating basic features and the location of key tools. We are going to load some data located in an S3 bucket, the data lake of Amazon Web Services. We'll also make some queries to the data after loading it, and we'll check the results and how Snowflake leverages its own mechanism, which is an excellent feature that saves us time and resources. So I want to start by mentioning that everyone can get a free trial account to test Snowflake. You can sign up for a 30-day trial trial.snowflake.com. Here you can see that we have a number of credits to spend in these 30 days. These are more than enough to familiarize yourself with the platform, do any of the official courses to learn about Snowflake and even explore the environment before getting certified. Also, you can choose any of the editions and the region of the Snowflake account. And after the registration, you will receive an email to access the computing cluster. This link will look like 2 letters, 5 numbers, and .snowflakecomputing.com. So if we click this link, we will end up here. Well, not here, because if it's the first time logging in, they will prompt you a menu to create a user. So once you create it and log in, you will be here in this worksheets menu. So we can see on the left side a vertical menu with different sections. This menu is all we need to move across the Snowflake environment. Once in, the first thing we see is almost likely the worksheets, which is where we are now. We'll get into that in a minute. Let's first take a look at a higher level. The first dropdown here is used, this one is used as the typical user menu. We can switch roles because Snowflake uses a role-based access control. We can get our profile to change the password, display name, multi-factor authentication. Also, we can get to the documentation support page or sign out. At the bottom of this same vertical menu, we have a drop-down that shows us details about our Snowflake account, such as the cloud provider, region, edition, and the locator. This last one, the locator, is an account identifier. So as you see, this UI is pretty intuitive, and you won't have many difficulties adapting to it. So let's start with each of the menus that we have here. The first one we're going to see, basically, Snowflake is used to handle data, and it handles it using a well-known approach, database tables, okay? So how can we see the current structure of our data? We can do so by going to the data section. This automatically opens the free subsection named databases. From here, we can manage our databases, create them, drop them, change permissions. This vertical menu in the middle lists all the databases in our system. You might have noticed that there are some databases already that they are created by default. The important one here is this one called Snowflake. Here we have all kinds of details about the usage and resource metadata in our account. This is the only database that will always be available in our account. We cannot have less than that. It is read only though. We can unfold each of these elements, for example, the schema, and it will show things like tables, views, functions, like in this case. And if we unfold these views, we will see all the views that there are in this database. So all these objects are the ones that are supposed to be tied to a database. We cannot create a view outside the database. We cannot create a function outside the database, and so on. So we can also click each of the entities just to check these details that we have here. For example, here we have, this is a share shared by Snowflake. This account usage has privileges to account admin, which is the current role that I am using. We can see that here. And then if we go to a view, we can see other things like the columns it has, a subset of data as a preview to see what it looks like. So that's everything for the database subsection. Let's go to the private sharing just quickly. In the same data section, there is this private sharing subsection where we can manage the shared data, either by you or to you. Remember that one of the features of a Snowflake is the ease of sharing data with others. And we can share it with other Snowflake users and even with external users like customers, thanks to the reading accounts. We do not even have to worry about security because Snowflake already does that for us by ensuring a secure connection and all the security certifications that we saw previously in the presentation. However, we are not going to focus on this feature during this demo, and we'll skip directly into the admin tab. So there are two sections of Snowflake that we want to show in this demo. One of these is the admin tab, and then we'll go to the worksheets and we'll see also the activity. But for now, the admin tab, from here we can monitor and manage our resources, costs, roles, users, all this kind of admin stuff. The first thing shown is the usage tab, here opened. Basically, the incurred costs of our accounts. Here we can easily check the cost of our actions to keep everything under control. But the actual tab that we want to show is the one right below, the warehouses. Warehouses are the compute resources of Snowflake. They have a size, they can be set to automatically scale up to a chosen limit. We can adjust their time to auto-suspend when not used. They can auto-resume as well. We can see all these things when creating a warehouse. This is related to the size, and then in advanced opt-ins we can check all these auto-resume, auto-suspend, and even the auto-scaling with multi-cluster warehouse. We can set limits, either as a maximum or a minimum. But as you can see, we already have a predefined a default small warehouse, and that always comes when you create a Snowflake account. So with this, we would be ready to start working with our data because we already have a warehouse. Okay, so now we can move to the worksheets. This is, as the name suggests, is where we keep the documents that enable us to work with our data. Basically, first of all, we are going to create a folder just to keep things in some sort of order. Not this, sorry. Folder. We'll create demo. So we now have this demo folder. There are some things created by default as well, like a tutorial for a benchmark and so on. However, if we go to the demo folder we've just created, we can also create a SQL or a Python worksheet. Okay, for this demo, we will use SQL. And then we get this view, okay? What can we do from this view? As you can see, we have this menu, this vertical menu where we can manage our worksheets. I've just removed the one that I mistakenly created. I can even rename this to, for example, introduction to Snowflake. So we have this introduction to Snowflake. We can hide this. And other than that, we also have this tab to view all these things that we saw in the data section, like databases, tables, views, and so on. We can even see metadata from here. So it is very useful when developing. Also, we have this the text editor. Here we can write our code. Okay. And above this text box, we have all the context menus. We have a context menu for the role and the warehouse that you want to use when performing these queries or the code when running this code that you will write here. And also there is a context to choose the database and the schema that you want to use as the target for your queries. So to start with the SQL, we have, just to save time, some queries already written. We can export this by going to this three-dotted menu in the tab, import SQL from file, and getting the SQL file. So these are this is modified and shortened just for this demo, but it is taken also from this Snowflake lab that I mentioned before. But basically, we're going to start creating a use case, stating the use case, creating all the things we need, and then loading the data, okay? So basically, we start these same things that we did to to select the context. We can also do it by code. We can use role account admin, and then we can start creating all this stuff, because in the DDL statements, we won't be using any warehouse. We only will need the warehouse when loading the data, okay? So even without the warehouse, we could be throwing commands like create table, create database, and so on. Before that, though, the use case we're going to use, as you may have guessed, it is a bike rental. It is from a bike rental system in New York City called City Bike with I instead of Y. This data set, in this case, we've taken from this S3 bucket from Snowflake, but it is easily available anywhere if you Google it, in Kaggle, in their own web page, which is citybike New York City, citybikenyc.com. So you can check that also if you want. So now we are going to start creating this database, okay? So once we create the database called CityBike, okay, we can go to the databases tab here, refresh it. We will see that we have this database created. Also, you'll see that we have some schemas already. These ones are always created when creating a database in Snowflake. The public one, though, is usually removed. We remove it and we create one with a more meaningful name. But just so that you know that it exists, we will be using this public schema, this default one, in this demo. The information schema is just about metadata and so on, so we don't even need to worry about this. So let's go with the public schema. So we are going to use database CityBike and use schema public. Okay, the same thing like as clicking here, CityBike and public. We have to create also the table where we are going to load the data. In this case, once we run this, we can refresh and we will have the table created under the public schema, which is this default one. And then to get the data from S3, we need an external stage, okay? Snowflake creates the stages just to, you create the stages to point at Snowflake where to go find these files or the data that you want to load to the tables. In this case, it's called an external stage just because it is in S3, which is external to Snowflake. It is hosted by and managed by Amazon. So in this case, we call it external, but it's a stage as well. So with this command, we will be pointing from Snowflake to this S3 bucket, okay? And we can even list what's inside this bucket, just to see that we have several files here, okay? The size of the files and so on. Another thing that we need before actually loading the data is a file format. So the file format is basically an object. It's also a database object that will be found here once we create it, that is used whenever you want to read from an stage, for example. The data will be in some sort of format stored in a file. So you need to specify Snowflake what the data looks like. So in this case, we are going to be querying or loading CSV data. Although we are using CSV, Snowflake can use also things like JSON, XML, can also read Parquet, Avro, or C. So you're most likely going to have your data, your desired format here. Once we run this, let me run this now. We will have this stage and the file format as well here, so we can always see and quickly check all the objects that we want to use or the ones that we've created. With that, we are prepared to start with the queries. As you can see, we have not used any warehouse yet. We can check it here in the query details. You can go check it in the view query profile. And we can see that, for example, we didn't use any warehouse, okay, because the size is not set. That is because we are only using DDL statements and things that do not require this kind of compute. So now once we want to start copying from S3 into our table, we will need this compute, okay? So this cluster that is now warehouse that is now suspended will be automatically started once we run this command. So now, as you can see, it turned on. And since we are using the default one with the XSmall cluster, and it will take some time, let's just cancel this, create our own warehouse, which will be called analytics warehouse, and it's assigned a size of large. Then we're going to use the warehouse, which would be the same thing as selecting it from here. Okay, we already have it, and then we will run the same command. Okay, it's the same one like before. So now this will be ending sooner, like in 11 seconds or so, and then we will be able to see all the data in our table. Okay, that is the information of what was loaded. For example, in this first file, what we got is 85,000 rows. Okay, and you have several information here. The important thing though is that even if we know that we've loaded this not only because of this, but because if we run this statement, for example, the simple limit select everything limit statement, we will see the data, and we can even check it here in the trips table. We can check the number of rows that we've loaded and the size. Okay, so we know that we have something here. We can also check the definition, and there are several useful features here in this menu just to save us time when developing. So let's get into querying. Now I am going to disable the cache just to show you that if we through this query, it will be computed, and we will be okay under a second, and we view the query profile, and we can check all the information that basically what the processor has to do to fulfill this request, right? Also, you can go to the query details and see the warehouse that was assigned, the size of the warehouse that was assigned to this query, the duration of this query, and you can see details like the compilation time, execution time, and also the SQL text that was thrown and the results that we got there. Okay, so now let's enable this cache again, just to see that if we run this and we run it again, someone in the same Snowflake account runs it again and has permissions and so on, they will be going to cache instead of the warehouse to compute this. Well, they don't even need to compute anything because they already have the result. So basically, Snowflake use this cache to save us time and resources because we don't even need a warehouse for this query. Okay, we made the same query and no warehouse was used, and the duration was like instantly. Okay, only compilation time because the execution time was simply getting the result from the query. Okay, so this thing about turning off and on the cache is something that you really will never have to do. It's just for testing purposes that I'm using now. But it is always it should always be on. Another great feature of Snowflake is its capabilities for data protection and time travel. To give you a clear view of what I mean by that, let's just delete this table with this drop table command. Okay, we can try to query it now, but obviously we can't because we deleted it. Okay, trips does not exist or not authorized. In this case, it does not exist because we just drop it. So what Snowflake allows us to do is doing this undrop command. Okay, if we run it, what has happened is that basically we've got this table again. We can try to select it, and we will have the exact same data. You can go here and even refresh here, and you will see that we have the same number of rows and the size of the table is the same. So basically we recover this table. This time travel allows us to go back in time to query all data. The standard limit on time travel is 1 day, but with the enterprise edition, you can go up to 90 days back. There are more complex things that can be done with this, like querying to a certain table with a time filter before an action was performed. But we will leave this for another session since it's the complexity of this is going higher. So before finishing the demo, I'd like to show you also about the roles and the permissions in Snowflake. Just a simple example. We are now using this role of account admin, okay? So let's prepare a new role called Junior DBA. And we are going to assign, in this case, to my user, this role. Okay, so if I now try to change to Junior DBA, as you can see, I do not have access to this new CityBike database that I created. Okay, although I have it here, it's booked because if I try to select from here, for example, I do not even have a warehouse to run, so I don't have any permission. Okay, so let's go to use a role account admin again. And let's grant some roles to the Junior DBA role, okay? First, we'll start by giving access to the database, only database usage permission. If we change now into Junior DBA, we'll see if we refresh that we have access to this database, but not to the objects that it has. Then we can also grant ourselves privilege or to this role on schema, okay, and to the table. And in this case, we are going to grant only select permissions. Sorry. So by doing this, okay, we should be able now to use our Junior DBA role and see all the things that we should be having here. Okay, we refresh and we can see the public schema, we can see the tables, stages, and so on. In this case, the tables have not been loaded yet. It is taking some time now. Okay, so we can see here the trips table and we are Junior DBA. However, we still cannot run anything because we do not have access to any warehouse. Also, as we only gave this select permission, we cannot even drop a table from this Junior DBA role, insufficient privileges, okay? And we can go back to this role account admin. We can grant usage on this warehouse to the role Junior DBA. And now Junior DBA should be able to at least select this and query this. For example, let's disable the cache just so that you see that we are accessing this warehouse instead of the cache. And as you can see, we are now having this select everything from trips limit 20. Okay. So basically, we created a new user and we granted limited permissions just to avoid that they make mistakes like dropping a table, other things that might be harming. So let's get back to this used cache and the account admin, and this would be the end of this demo. I want to finish it though by highlighting that we have efficiently loaded the data into Snowflake. We even queried it with minimal effort. And by that, I mean that we did not have to specify any primary key, any distribution key, partition key. Any of these classic tools had to be done manually by us, the users, because Snowflake has already optimized everything for us. All the time we have spent, we dedicated it entirely to creating and getting value from our data, and no administration, minimal configuration, just awesome, okay? So there is more to explore about the Snowflake, managing users and permissions and so on, the things we explained about time traveling, but we will leave it here for today since you have already seen the basics of Snowflake and a clear view of its capabilities.
Okay, so now let's jump to the wrap up and conclusions of all these sessions that we have seen. For that, I would like just to review a little bit what our customers love from our Snowflake projects. No? What are the key features that they are liking the most? So yeah, the first one is that Snowflake is user-friendly. It needs no maintenance or optimization cost. In most of the projects, we have found that this is completely true. The performance of the solution, it's really good and it fits with the needs of the different customers that we have. Also, the automatic and reactive scalability. So yeah, just use the resources that you need in each moment. This is a really important feature and works really well in our implementations. The next one in the top 3 is the transparent storage with unlimited capacity. You will never have to start thinking, oh, I'm no more storage in my database. Do I have to enlarge my systems? This never happens in Snowflake because of its scalability. And the last one that we want to remark is also that we can share data with third parties in a really quickly way. No? Historically, in some of the projects that we had, they had not these kind of processes, just to move the data from their databases to third-party databases. With Snowflake, it is an instant process because you can directly share some of the tables, some of the objects of your database with third-party people. No? So imagine when you want to share a table that is in your data lake, you can rephrase this table and give access directly to third-party people. So they will, as soon as your table is rephrased, it will be also rephrased for the other people. So yeah, this is more or less the conclusions that we have. And also, if you want more information about Snowflake, you can visit our ClearPeaks blog site. And here we are publishing some of the findings that we are having in our projects, sharing a little bit our experiences, our also POCs that we are doing with the tool. For instance, we have done some series of blog posts about Power BI and Snowflake integration. We have our own data quality tool implemented in Snowflake. And in here you can, with this data wash series of blog posts, you can review how to build a data application fully in Snowflake. And also we are doing some findings on integration. For instance, we have a blog on how to implement a data lake querying in AWS and Snowflake.
With that, I want to thank you all team for preparing that webinar. Thank you all the attendees for joining us today, and see you in the next Journey to the Cloud webinar.